Hi, today I want to talk to you about the Arizona Association of Realtors On-site Wastewater Treatment Facilities Addendum. That's the septic system addendum. Just going to go down the form pretty quickly here. The facility inspections, the first part that trips people up a little bit, that has to be done at the seller's expense and within 6 months prior to the close of escrow. So if you're closing in July, it has to have been done in January, February, March, somewhere after. But no later than 20 days before close, or 20 days after the contract acceptance. So you have to be careful there to get this done at the right time. If you wait till after you get an offer in, it sometimes get to be a challenge to get someone out to do it. But if you get it done on a property that's not going to sell in less than 4 or 5 months, you could run into a problem as well. Just making sure everybody understands that. And along with that inspection, it needs to be pumped as well. Even if it's an alternative system, as long as it has a septic tank part, they need to pump out the solids and liquids and floating matter. So just make sure that's done. Make sure your client understands that needs to be done, and then make sure that your seller understands that it is on them to pay for that. The next section is talking about the repair costs. If the response comes back as non-functional, the seller with this addendum already agrees to pay up to 1% of the price of the property to make the repairs. That means there's no negotiation, there's nothing goes on the Benzer. This doesn't count as anything from the buyer. The seller agrees to pay for that. Now if it comes in higher than 1% of the property, the buyer can cancel immediately. The seller can cancel unless the buyer agrees to pay anything above the amount of the 1%. So let me make sure I'm clear on that. The buyer can cancel no matter what. The seller can cancel unless the buyer doesn't agree to pay for any costs above the 1%. So just let your buyers know, your sellers know, that 1% of the cost of this house, you've got to be prepared to spend that to make sure this wastewater facility is working. So sometimes people stumble on this because they haven't explained it really well to their sellers. So just be careful on that. If you're a listing agent and you've got a septic system, you haven't dealt with it in a while, give me a call. I'll talk to you, 602-400-4376. We can get through this, okay? If it comes back functional with concerns, the buyer and seller can agree to negotiate the repairs. And this is separate from the Benzer, and they agree to negotiate these repairs separately from that system, or from that system. And it just gets done. You can either figure it out or you can't. They can each cancel, and they each have their time to do that. But make sure that this gets worked out. They don't have to do anything. They just have to agree that they may want to negotiate. The buyer can disapprove and get their earnest money back within 5 days of receiving the documents. So that's this document and the inspection document. One notice on that, and I should have covered it with the document delivery section here, but when the buyers are given the inspection report, it doesn't have anywhere in there typically for them to sign acknowledging receipt. I would suggest that you as a buyer's agent should request that your client's initial saying that they've received this document. What happens if you give it to them by hand? They don't initial it, you don't copy it, we don't know that we've given it to them. They come back in 6 months and say this thing was never inspected because they can't find that document. So we've got to keep that sort of in our back pocket there and ready to go. So I would just put it in my transaction folder, send it out for electronic signature. If they insist on having it done by hand, get them to initial acknowledging receipt and make a copy of it and get it in your transaction folder. The next section is that there's a notice of transfer that needs to be done. The buyer agrees to get to the escrow company the ADEQ notice of transfer of ownership of an on-site wastewater treatment facility form. It's a notice of transfer form. It's pretty straightforward. There's some stuff you've got to fill out. You have to let them know that you're going to transfer ownership. Now, a lot of people believe that you can't transfer a non-functioning wastewater treatment facility, and you can. It's certainly not the best thing in the world to do as a buyer, because you've got to make it right eventually, or ADEQ is going to come looking for you. But you've got to get it. You don't have to have it functioning. Just want to make perfectly clear that everybody understands that. you can agree as a buyer to not accept or to not have it functioning as it comes in. And that does come up occasionally. An investor will be buying a property that's got a septic system, and sometime within the last 15 or 20 years they've run sewer down the street, and they're just going to pay to hook it up. It's going to cost them $25,000, $30,000 to hook up to the system, or it costs them $30,000 or $40,000 to completely replace the septic system. That does come up. You need to know your clients pretty well and what their threshold for pain is on this thing. It's a pretty straightforward form. Read it, know it. I know here in the East Valley we don't get a lot of opportunities to use this form, but we certainly have a lot of opportunities to make mistakes with it. So if you have questions on it and you're with JK, certainly give me a call, 602-400-4376. If you're not with JK, I would encourage you to talk to your broker. I would be glad to talk with you, but I would certainly, at the end of our conversation, send you to talk to your broker anyway. So good luck. If you have questions, again, reach out. Thanks.